I'm over at my table saw. I've got my wedgie sled set up. I've got my stop set up for cutting the lengths. So I'm going to make another segmented turning. I want to use 16 segments per ring on this. Almost all the wood will be cherry. I have this all cut out and ready to make segments out of it. So I'm going to show you the cutting of one ring, and they'll all look the same. The only difference will be the length of the segments and the width of the pieces. When I make something different, I'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and cut 16 segments out of this piece, and we'll get everything glued together. And I'll show you some of that as well. Alright, let's go ahead and get one of these rings glued together. Now I'm putting enough glue on the one side, and I'm not squeezing it together real tight. That will prime the dry piece quite well. I have one more ring to make, but I'm going to glue these pieces together before I do that. Here's the first disc that I'll be gluing on the base, which is on the lathe right now. It's really close to the proper thickness. I just need to flatten this side out. I'll get it glued on, and then I'll flatten this side out, and then we'll do another disc. Using my 14-inch disc sander that I built about 50 years ago, and I couldn't find any 14-inch discs. Got it hooked up to my dust collector. It makes minimal dust when you sand. Alright, that's all it needs. I've got glue on the joint, and I have a cone that helps line everything up. I'll let that sit for about 15 minutes. I'll do a little bit of shaping. I'll flatten the joint, and I'll do the same thing again until we get all the rings glued on. I'm getting the inside mostly shaped on here because when I start gluing more rings on there, it'll just be that much farther to reach down and do it. I'm sanding a ring flat right now for a glue joint, and then I measure to make sure it's the thickness I want. So far, all the rings that I've glued on here have been cherry. I have a piece of walnut right now. I'm going to glue it on, let it sit all night, then I have to do something to it tomorrow morning, and you will see that then. Just going to line up my pencil lines here, and they look pretty good. Okay, I let this sit all night, and just looking at the grain in here, I just lightly cleaned it up. It is a beautiful piece of walnut, but I don't need a ring this wide. I need one about an 1/8 inch wide. So I glued it together out of a bigger piece because I need 2 of them at an 1/8. It's just easier to glue something this wide than an 1/8 inch wide. I'm going to use my parting tool, and we're just going to cut that off and flatten it off again and do it on the other side of the feature ring. I have that cone real close to the ring so that when I cut through the ring doesn't fall onto the bed of the lathe and try to run away. So this is not the actual feature ring, but I guess I could call it a mini feature ring. What I'm working on right now is the very top of the turning. The feature ring is in between the top and the bottom, of course, but because it's going to be hard to get inside of it, I'm building them in halves. Alright, I'm going to put 1 more inch thick ring on here. Okay, I'm going to cut 1 more 1/8 inch ring off of this walnut. I've got that cone in there just to catch this so it doesn't go flying. So this is a good reason that it's made up in halves, because I wouldn't be able to reach down through the top and get this shape, and I wouldn't really be able to reach down and get the inside of the lower piece, but it's always a lot easier to do the turning while you have access to it. So this is going to be the feature ring. It's maple, padauk, yellow heart, padauk, and maple. I need to get it glued together, and then I'll cut it up and turn it into a feature ring. So I've got the stock for the feature ring here. I need to cut a number of slices at 30 degrees. I have my wedgie sled set up. I'm going to go ahead and make my first cut to get the angle on it, and then we'll cut some more. After cutting these on a 30-degree angle, there's a number of ways you can assemble them. You can do it like that and get a chevron, but I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to put them together like this and then stagger the pieces like so. I think that's going to look pretty cool. So now I just need to glue all of them together. I'll show you a couple of these. It's pretty simple. Usually you don't need to clamp them if you got a nice straight cut there, which I think I do. I just slide them and push till I see glue come up along the whole edge. And then I wipe it down like that and pull it down until the corners line up like so. That's it. That's all you need to do. If it for some reason doesn't go together, you can use a spring clamp on it. I'll do one more and then I'll get set up to cut the ends square. So push and slide, bring it into place. I have a number of cutting fixtures and I can adjust them very easily to do what I want. This one I have a stop set up to cut this end off where I want it. Once I get all the first end cut off, I'll flip it around. I'll have to readjust the stop to get the right length. I'll show you a couple of these cuts and then we'll come back and show you how I square it up. I went ahead and adjusted this stop right here. It just has double sticky tape on it. I need to square this end off and make sure I got the right length, and we'll cut the rest of them. So I've got this cut to length. It's a piece for the future ring. I need to put an angle on the side. There's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm using a sled where I have the blade tilted 11.5 degrees. It goes against the stop and it cuts it almost all the way to the top, leaving just a little edge to index it, because then I can turn it around and cut the other side. So I want to make sure I got them set in the right way. Looks like. I've got a little stack here to do, so I'll see you when they're all cut. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and glue this future ring together, and I did do a dry fit, but I was real careful with checking the angle a couple different ways when I cut these pieces, so I was pretty confident that they would fit. I let this ring sit for about 3 hours. I took the hose clamp off, flattened this on my disc sander. I'm going to go ahead and glue it to the base, let it sit all night, and then tomorrow morning I'll get back on it and we'll start shaping this to fit here, and then we'll fit the upper half to this side. This sat all night. It's time to clean this up, and I'll do a little blending into this piece, leaving it a slightly higher in the middle. Got a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. We're doing 830 RPM. I have the base pretty close. I may have more to cut here. This is the top of it. I have it on a ball bearing arbor, which will go in my chuck. I'll be able to put it up against here, use a little friction, and I'll be able to turn that shape to match here. That's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, I do have more to come off of this, but it's not a lot. So that's going to be good. So we're going to lock this in place. See how it runs. Okay. Not bad. And that friction will hold it while I do this shaping. Once that's done, I can put this chuck on the headstock and match the inside to the inside of this one. Okay, you might have missed a little bit of this. I started the camera, and sometimes when I set this down, it shuts it off, but you didn't miss a lot. So I've measured the inside diameter where the joint is. I've marked it right here. I'm going to turn that to that line so that when it's glued together, if you look in there, you shouldn't see a little step. Then I'll get this sanded up, and we'll get a finish on the inside of the top here and the base. Just use this little round carbide. That is right on. Okay. Get this sanded up, and I'll come back and show you a little bit of the finish going on. I decided to use the Minwax wipe-on poly. Oh, that's some pretty cherry there. I'm not going to get anything in here because I have to cut from the top side down and blend that in. Alright, looks pretty cool. Well, here it goes. I'm going to glue this half to this half over here, and hopefully I don't get a bunch of glue on the inside. So I'm just going to use this little brush and get some glue around here. Alright, I've got a mark here. It just has to be even everywhere else. Okay, I just tightened it up. And I think I'll just let this sit all night long. And from this position here, I'll be able to get the shape on there. And I'll get my steady rest up here, and we'll do the inside. Looking pretty good, huh? Alright, about all I have to do here is just get this blended down to that ring. Use a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, 850 RPM. Alright, it's time to sand it up. This is pretty smooth. I'm going to start with 120 grit. I'm going to use sheets of paper for this just because of the direction of the grain and the shape that I have. I'll get it sanded to 400 and it'll be time to put a finish on it. I'm doing 375 RPM. I'm using Minwax wipe-on poly. It's the oil-based, and I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I'll probably put three or four coats on this, maybe more. Anyways, there it is. So I'll see you pretty soon. Well, here it is, and I have to say I really love how this one turned out. The wood in it is just beautiful. The shape is nothing original, that's been around for years, but recently I went to the AAW Wood Turning Symposium here in Portland, and there was a vase there that looked a lot like this. It wasn't exactly like this, but it was a lot like it. It was enough to inspire me to want to make one, and that's what we've just done. I used Wood Turner Pro. It'll create dots. With Wood Turner Pro and the 3D Pro, you can create a profile. Then you can adjust it to get it where you want, which I did. And then I don't go by that shape 100%. That gives me the glue up for the segments. Once it's glued together, my gouge is what I use to make the final shape and to get it nice and smooth and so that it flows. It's made from cherry, padauk, maple, yellow heart, and walnut. It's about 5 inches in diameter and about 6 inches tall. I use Minwax wipe-on poly for the finish. I may have 7 to 9 coats that I wiped on. The very first coat, I sand it lightly with 320. After that, it might use Scotch-Brite to buff it out, but I put it on real thin, and that way it's nice and smooth, plus it dries fast. Something about the base it's different than I usually do. Sometimes I've made solid segmented rings. This time I made it just like a regular ring, and on the inside I put a recess, put a piece of maple in there so that it would allow the light to shine so you could see inside a little better. And on the base I used a piece of maple burl just for fun. I tried to show all the steps involved in doing this, at least a little bit of each one. And I hope that was enough that you could follow the process on how to do this. But I do know that I had a heck of a lot of fun making it, and I sure hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, it's really easy to let me know. You can click that like button, and if you left a comment, that's even better. I read them all and I do my best to answer them all. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so. And a special thanks to all my current subscribers. So, till the next time, see you later.